It is the 20-year-old sensation from the Philippines, Eala. Congratulations on the win. I watched that entire match.
2 million Filipinos are erupting right now because Eala and Victoria Mboko just walked into Roland Garros and stunned an Olympic doubles medalist on the biggest clay court on the planet. Nobody believed this was possible. Not the bookmakers, not the commentators, not the so-called experts who had already written this match off before a single ball was struck. But the names trending across Manila, Toronto, Dubai, and every Filipino household with a screen tonight are Eala and Mboko, a first-time partnership, a Grand Slam stage, and an Olympic silver medalist sitting on the wrong side of the scoreline. What happened on that clay in Paris is the moment the tennis establishment lost control of the narrative. Less than 10 days ago, both of these players were carrying losses that should have crushed lesser competitors. Eala exited the Roland Garros singles draw against Iva Jovic. Mboko, the world number 9, fell short in the Strasbourg final to Emma Navarro. Then the doubles entry list dropped, and two names appeared side by side for the very first time at a WTA main draw, Eala and Mboko. The reaction inside the sport was not excitement, it was sympathy, because of who was waiting for them on the other side of the net. The opponents were Leylah Fernandez and Diana Shnaider, a former U.S. Open finalist paired with the 2024 Paris Olympic silver medalist in women's doubles. Same surface, same complex, same city where Shnaider had already proven she could go medal deep at the highest level of doubles tennis on earth. Pre-match coverage was lopsided. Experts called the matchup a mismatch. A first-time pairing, with Eala ranked 88 in doubles, and Mboko primarily known as a singles weapon against a duo with Olympic hardware and years of WTA chemistry. The pundits did not just pick against the young team, they dismissed them. What none of those experts bothered to research was the history Eala and Mboko already had. The two faced each other at the 2022 U.S. Open Girls semifinal, the run that ended with Eala lifting the junior trophy. 3 years later, that junior rivalry had quietly become a friendship and a chemistry the scouting reports completely missed. The Olympic medalist on the other side of the net was about to learn that the hard way. From the opening game, the pattern was obvious to anyone actually watching. Eala took the deuce court, Mboko the ad side, and they moved together with the kind of timing that does not happen by accident. The early break came fast. The body language across the net changed faster. Mboko, the world number 9, was unloading on returns with the same firepower that took her from outside the top 300 to the top 10 in barely a year. Eala, sharpened by her clay court run in Rome, was suddenly the most composed player at the net on the court. Put yourself in Diana Shnaider's position for 1 second. You walk on as the decorated half of the favored team. You have an Olympic silver medal from this exact city, and you watch two teenagers, one of them ranked 88 in doubles, dictate the tempo against you in front of a global audience. The court starts shrinking. Your partner starts pressing. The young ones across the net start smiling. Monday, the draw came out, and the experts picked against them. Tuesday, the Philippine press warned fans not to set expectations too high. Wednesday, the match began, and by the time the umpire called the score that mattered, the entire prediction industry had been embarrassed. Inside the stadium, witnesses described scenes that television cameras kept catching. A Philippine flag contingent in the upper rows that refused to sit down. Tournament staff confirmed the noise around the court spiked every single time Eala stepped to the line. On Philippine social media, the hashtag Eala Mboko climbed into the national trending list before the first set was even closed out. One Sports PH watch parties in Manila were packed. Group chats from Dubai to Toronto to Los Angeles went into meltdown. And this is the part the believers earned the right to hear. The fans who watched Eala upset top 10 players in Miami and said this was just the beginning. You were not delusional. The viewers who tracked Mboko's rocket climb up the rankings and said she would announce herself at a slam. You were ahead of the curve. The world is not catching up to a fluke. The world is finally catching up to what you have been telling everyone for months. The final point landed. Eala and Mboko met in the middle of the court in an embrace that was less celebration and more confirmation. Shnaider, the Olympic medalist, gathered her bags in silence, and the flag in the upper deck kept waving. There is one voice in tennis whose belief in a clay court player carries more weight than any other. 14 Roland Garros titles, 22 majors, the greatest clay court mind in the history of the sport. And that voice has been quietly working with Alex Eala behind the scenes, Rafael Nadal. Speaking to Tennis Channel during the Italian Open weeks ago, Eala said it directly. Anything I can take from Rafa, I'll take with pride. Read that sentence carefully. That is not a name drop. That is the verbal fingerprint of a player who has had access to the most successful clay court brain on the planet and absorbed it. Nadal does not lend his time to players he does not believe in. He has watched Eala move on this surface. He has corrected her in private, and his conviction in her ability to perform on red dirt is now being broadcast in real time to anyone paying attention. What just happened in Paris is not an isolated upset. It is a generational handoff inside the WTA, and it is accelerating. Mboko at 19 is already top 10. Eala is climbing through the singles ranks with the kind of clay court intelligence most players never develop. Together, they represent two markets the sport has been desperate to unlock: Southeast Asia and the next wave of Canadian talent. The Philippine fan base alone is a force most tournament directors do not yet know how to handle. Over 100 million people at home, plus a global diaspora that streams matches at 3 in the morning without complaint. Add Canadian audiences rallying around Mboko, and you are looking at a viewership engine the WTA cannot ignore. The doubles draw at Roland Garros now runs straight through them. After Paris comes the grass swing. Wimbledon is 6 weeks away. The U.S. Open Series follows after that. The question is no longer whether this pairing can survive a Grand Slam draw. The question is how deep they push before the rest of the field figures out how to slow them down. Do not let the celebration erase the bruises that came before it. Eala's singles run here ended in straight sets just days ago. Mboko walked into Paris carrying a Strasbourg final she could not close out. Neither one of them hid from those losses. Eala's posts after her singles exit were measured and forward-facing. Mboko, asked about her Grand Slam ambition just before this tournament, gave the only answer that matters. "I want to win a Grand Slam," she said. "It's only a matter of time." That is the same conviction that walked onto a Paris doubles court and refused to flinch against an Olympic medalist. A first-time partnership, an Olympic silver medalist on the other side, a junior rivalry that quietly turned into the most explosive doubles chemistry on the tour, and a flag in the stands that never stopped moving. Alex Eala and Victoria Mboko did not just play a match in Paris. They announced that the next generation is not asking the establishment for permission anymore. Now, in full honesty about the timeline, this match is happening in the same window this video is being released, and the final scoreline is still being written on the clay as you watch. But here is the truth that already cannot be taken back. 2 million Filipinos are locked in, the watch parties are live, the hashtags are trending. The belief these two have built is already a result the bookmakers cannot price. Whether the scoreboard reads exactly the way every Filipino heart wants it tonight, the moment has already arrived. Because two players the tennis world refused to take seriously are now sitting at the center of the conversation. So here is the question worth fighting about in the comments. How far does this pairing go in Paris? Quarterfinals, semifinals, or a full Cinderella march to the title? Plant your flag below. And if you have been tracking Eala since the early Miami upsets, and Mboko since her first breakout, you already know, this channel is where the early believers gather. Not the bandwagon, not the latecomers, the ones who saw it coming. Subscribe and stay inside the circle because the next chapter of this story is being decided court by court, and you do not want to read about it secondhand.